just don't get it.
I'm a little disappointed, but I also know how good he is.
How could he take it easy? The whole world is watching. There's not a chance he's going to make it look like this guy can box with him.
Can you imagine if Jake...
A significant difference, and ultimately, he did what he had to do to survive. He tried to sneak in some big shots, but in the end, the better boxer was going to systematically break him down, and that's what he did, and he got the victory. So I left that show on Friday thinking, this
rated. But he's a two-time heavyweight world champion. He's like one of the fucking scariest guys in the division. Lightning fast punches. 245 fucking pounds. He's huge. He's way bigger. Way more skilled.
He's like a foot tall.
Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Jake had one job, and that was to try and survive. I mean, he was never, ever going to win the fight, ever. And if you would have said to me, do I think he'll go 6 rounds? I would have said absolutely not. I mean, I felt that it would take AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, because I knew Jake can move a bit, and he'd be moving off the back foot, and he'd be holding. But it was the way that he did it, I think, was actually quite impressive. Like, not that particular part, but the way that he would, the way that he was strong in the clinch. He wouldn't let AJ get his shots off in the clinch. He made him miss a few times. And obviously, AJ's been out of the ring for a while. But to be honest, I think the most fascinating thing of the whole night in terms of the fight was how he didn't get flatlined by that right hand. I mean, I said going into the fight, it's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster. But there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well. I mean, I stand by the fact that I think he's just a decent cruiserweight, but he did go in with Anthony Joshua, and look, the world is full of criticism and opinions and negativity. Who else is doing what he's doing at what is he, late 20s? I mean, quite phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a complete madman. I'm watching him come out to that ring walk.
The night that boxing met the digital age on a massive stage of Netflix, the world witnessed more than just a fight. It was a cultural collision that left the combat sports community in a state of absolute fever pitch. As the dust settles on an encounter between the influencer-turned-pugilist Jake Paul and the 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, Anthony Joshua, a narrative of survival, professional reality, and bizarre legal rumblings has begun to emerge. For those watching from their couches, the spectacle was a mixture of technical dominance and a desperate, almost primal attempt to stay upright against a force of nature. The atmosphere was charged with the kind of tension only a heavyweight clash can provide. But this was a different kind of pressure. Anthony Joshua, a man whose career is built on the foundations of elite competition and heavyweight gold, stepped into the ring with a massive target on his back. For him, the stakes were deceptively high. A victory was expected, but any slip-up would have been catastrophic. Meanwhile, Jake Paul entered the ring as the ultimate underdog, a man attempting to bridge a technical chasm that many experts believed was impossible to cross. The fight itself unfolded like a strategic game of cat and mouse, or as some observers described it, like try catch a wet duck in a massive 22 by 22 foot ring. Throughout the opening rounds, the narrative was dominated by Paul's movement. He wasn't just boxing, he was navigating a minefield. He darted, circled, and clinched with a level of urgency that signaled a deep awareness of the power looming in Joshua's right hand. Critics and haters were quick to point out the constant movement, but from a strategic standpoint, it was the only path to longevity. Joshua, standing a foot taller and weighing at a lean, terrifying 245 pounds, looked every bit the apex predator. He wasn't rushing. He was systematically breaking Paul down, head-hunting at times, and cutting off the ring with the patience of a seasoned veteran. The climax of the physical struggle arrived in the 6th round, but the damage had already been done. Reports later confirmed the sheer brutality of the elite heavyweight's power. Jake Paul, despite his best efforts to manage risk, suffered a broken jaw in 2 places. The medical reality of the aftermath is staggering. for titanium plates and 8 screws were required to reconstruct his face. It serves as a start.
In the world, Netflix, ignoring the fact that Jake took on the biggest challenge he could possibly take on short notice. After Tank falls through, he goes and he's like, where's Francis? Okay, I'll go for the guy who beat Francis. I'll go for AJ. Ignoring the fact that, I think some people's stock were elevated on the undercard. Some of the fights on the undercard were really, really great. And ultimately, there isn't that much to be upset about. There isn't that much to be mad about. Netflix being involved in boxing is great. Jake stepping up and taking Anthony's best shots were great. I don't think Anthony looked bad at all. There were times where I felt like he was headhunting. There were times where I felt like he was trying to knock him out because I think he wanted to get rid of him. But you have to understand, when you have a guy who's running as much as he did and take shots at him or not for the game plan, that was his best way of surviving. It's like trying to chase a wet duck. You have to get him. And I think Anthony did actually a good job of pinning him into the corner sometimes, cutting off the ring. But it's hard to get a guy who's moving so much, who's clinching you, who's trying to do the antics that he was doing. That was the best chance for Jake to survive and then hope that he could crack him. He got tired. The ring was big. It was 22 by 22 as opposed to 20 by 20. There was a significant difference. And ultimately, he did what he had to do to survive. He tried to sneak in some big shots, but in the end, the better boxer was going to systematically break him down, and that's what he did, and he got the victory. So I left that show on Friday thinking, this feels like a win for everyone involved. This feels like a win for Netflix, a win for MVP, a win for Eddie and AJ and Matchroom. That's their guy. A win for Jake, and then a win for all the other fighters. I actually thought, in a way, it was the best of all the Netflix cards so far, as far as the 3 MVP cards. People were a little disappointed with Taylor Serrano and the main event and the lack of action. People had their say about, Jake and Tyson and the streaming issues and whatnot. This was one that I felt like it was like, if you are looking at it, with a clear mind, clear conscience, no bias, check. That was my view. Now let me ask the team, what did you guys think? Rick, I'll start with you. I've not asked a single one of you what you thought. Rick and GC were in attendance. You guys were watching it. Didn't see you guys, by the way. I saw my mom and sister. I was looking for you guys. Couldn't see you. Was hoping for a wave. Was hoping for a little, how are you? Didn't see you guys. What did you think?
I think everybody did their part. I think you kind of touched on the fact that it seemed like everybody involved won. I don't know if I say that. I think you could kind of debate individuals, but I think everybody did their part. And for that, I mean, for the longest time we've been hearing, and the outcry has been, Jake Paul doesn't take real fights. We have to see Jake Paul in a real fight. That's the only thing that I care about. He doesn't take real fights. He only fights old people. He only fights this. He only fights that. He delivered. He put his nuts on the table and he said, I'm going to take a real fight. Not only am I going to take a real fight, I'm going to fight a former heavyweight champion with knockout power who just dispatched of Francis Ngannou 2 fights ago in a way that was quite devastating. I'm going to go in against that guy. So to me, Jake Paul held up his side of the equation. I kind of view these I didn't have high expectations in terms of the boxing product. I think of this like the way that some people used to say, I read Playboy for the articles. I don't watch Jake Paul fights for boxing. I watch Jake Paul fights for spectacle. If you came in thinking that this was going to be a display of the greatest boxing you've ever seen, you're just misinformed. I don't know what.
Sobering reminder that regardless of the spectacle nature of the event, the physical consequences of elite boxing are very real and very dangerous. In the wake of the knockout, the conversation took a turn toward the surreal. Rumors began to swirl that Jake Paul was considering legal action against Anthony Joshua. The core of this bizarre claim suggests that Joshua allegedly failed to follow some form of instructions or an agreement regarding how the fight should proceed. To figures like Joe Rogan, the idea of a lawsuit in this context is almost incomprehensible. Rogan, along with other veterans of the fight game, pointed out the absurdity of expecting a world champion like Joshua to take it easy when the eyes of the entire world are on him. Joshua's reputation is his currency, and the idea that he would compromise his professional integrity to make a match look more competitive is a narrative that fails under the slightest scrutiny. Adding another layer to the post-fight chaos, Paul's manager, Narkisa Vidarian, revealed plans to crack down on defamation. The team is reportedly looking into suing individuals who continue to claim that Paul's fights are rigged, scripted, or fake. This defensive posture highlights the constant battle Paul faces for legitimacy. Despite stepping into the ring with a legitimate heavyweight champion and suffering a life-altering injury, the scripted narrative continues to haunt his career. However, technical analysts like Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi argue that the fight was clearly not a work. It was simply a mismatch of experience. They noted that Paul lacked the in-between boxing acumen, the ability to engage without being destroyed, leaving him with only two options: run for his life or get knocked out. The financial breakdown of the event provides an equally fascinating look into the realities of high-stakes sports business. While the headline numbers were astronomical, the take-home reality for Anthony Joshua was a lesson in international taxation. For a fight held in the USA, a UK resident like Joshua faces a gauntlet of deductions, starting with a staggering $93 million. He walked away with roughly $43 million after the governments of both nations took their share. This financial complexity is often hidden from the fans, but underscores the massive logistical and economic machinery required to put on an event of this scale. It also explains why many promoters are increasingly looking toward tax haven locations like Dubai to host these mega fights, where the athletes can retain a much larger portion of their earnings. Promoter Eddie Hearn provided a more grounded perspective on the match, praising Paul for his cautious survival-based strategy. Hearn acknowledged that Paul was never going to win a fight in a traditional sense, but the fact that he stayed active, used his strength in the clinches, and made a world champion miss several times was, in its own way, impressive for a novice. Hearn pointed out that many professional heavyweights would have been flatlined by the shots Paul took before the final blow. The fact that Paul stayed conscious through the initial barrage, despite the broken jaw, earned him a begrudging respect from some corners of the boxing world. On the other side of the commentary spectrum, Simon Jordan offered a blistering critique of Joshua's performance. Jordan argued that an elite fighter of Joshua's caliber should deliver a demolition job. He expressed disappointment that Joshua allowed the match to go 6 rounds, suggesting that the inability to finish a novice like Paul earlier was a notable shortcoming. From Jordan's view, a champion must seize the moment and make a definitive statement, especially when the skill gap is so vast. The failure to do so, he argued, opens a door for criticism regarding Joshua's timing and decision-making under pressure. The rig debate was further dismantled by analysts who pointed out Paul's unconventional tactics. In a desperate attempt to stay safe, Paul reportedly used double-leg takedown style lunges, a move more common in MMA, to close the distance and prevent Joshua from extending his arms to land power shots. He allegedly shot in over 30 times during the fight. While this exhausted Paul and made the fight look awkward and messy, it was a highly effective self-defense mechanism. It threw off Joshua's rhythm and made it difficult for the champion to find the clean knockout shot he was looking for in the early rounds.